Hi everyone, and welcome to my latest how-to video. Here we're going to be looking at painting a 1/35th scale model in monochrome black and white. For those of you who follow my work, you'll remember that I recently converted Airfix's K2 ambulance into the one used in the film Ice Cold in Alex, and as this was a black and white film, I decided to finish it off in black and white. So in this video I'm going to show you the process involved that you too can create a black and white finish to your model in a very simple and easy way using acrylics and oil paints. So first off, you need to get your research material. This is vitally important so that you can see all of the different tones and contrasts of the black and whites and the middle tones. Also, it will give you plenty of ideas on how you're going to be able to do your weathering processes as well. Now, first off, the actual kit here was the Austin K2 ambulance from Airfix, and as you can see, a lot of changes were made so that it looked like the one in the film Ice Cold in Alex, and you can look up my other videos to see how the build process went. But here we're going to be concentrating on the painting process itself. So first of all, we're going to be looking at the primers. Now, some people do like to use a black primer. It's not specifically my way that I like to go, because trying to get white on top of black, it can be pain in the backside, and you don't quite get the color that you want. But if you want to go for black, then I strongly recommend that you then dry brush the white primer on top as well. You can also go directly with the white primer itself if you want, but again, white primers are difficult to airbrush. So I like to go for the browns and the greys, using Mr. Hobby's Mr. Surfacer, and for this particular project we're going to go for Mr. Surfacer 1000 Grey. So first off, what we need to do is to make sure it's well stirred, and then using a toothpick we'll put it into the plastic container. Because this is quite a large model, we're going to be using a fair amount of the Mr. Surfacer. And then what we will need to do is to thin this out using Mr. Colour Thinner, so that you do get a good airbrush flow. Very roughly, we're looking at 5 parts paint to around about 2 to 3 parts thinner. But really, it's all down to mixing it using an old brush, as I'm doing here. And then, as we always say, trying to get the consistency like milk so that you get good flow through your actual airbrush. So as you can see, it's going down the side of the container nicely, and that's the sort of thickness that you're after. So once thinned out, we'll put it into the airbrush. Now you need to go over your model in thin coats. Once one of the coats is dried, then you can go back over it again, and you're sort of aiming to do around about 2 to 3 coats. Doesn't matter if you don't do a full coverage, if there's patches on it, that isn't an issue. What you want to try and do is to make sure you keep all of that detail. Now what we're going to do is to add some white markings, because whenever you do black and white, you need to make sure that you do high contrast colors, high contrast black, high contrast white, and then try and do some in between colors mixing, but we'll go into that in more detail later. So for this video we're going to be looking at using the wheels and also the main body, but as you can see, the other parts of the model were done in the same way as well. So the acrylics. Now I use Mr. Hobby Aquarius, which is a combination of lacquer and acrylic. Here we're going to be using the black and the whites. These are going to be your main colors for mixing, and as well as using neat. Also we're going to have slightly off white and slightly off black as well, which in this case is tire black. And then we have the greys, which you can use to mix up with the black and the white to give you different tonal effects. Try and avoid using the grey neat, because otherwise you'll just end up with a vehicle that looks grey rather than black and white. So you really after about 3 shades of white, and you're after around about 3 shades of black. And this will be your base coat colours. So again, here we're just wanting to create the white circles initially, for which the Red Cross will be going onto. Now, notoriously, white is a difficult colour to airbrush, so you need to do it in a very thin coat first. and then leave that to dry. Once it's dried after about 10 minutes, go back and do another coat. And again, build up these layers maybe 3 or 4 times until all of the grey primer cannot be seen. Once that coverage has been done, we're actually going to be doing some masks now. So getting some glass board and also some large Tamiya tape, we can then put that onto the glass, and then using a compass scribe, we're going to be cutting out the circles that we need to mask off. So using your ruler to measure the distance that you require, very carefully, you can use the cutter to cut out those circles. Once done, we can put the circle masks onto the actual body itself, and then very heavily using a cotton bud, we need to squeeze out any air and make sure that it's stuck down firmly so that there'll be no seepage when we put on the next layer of acrylics using the airbrush. So as you can see, these are all now prepared. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a slightly white color now to go over the whole of the model, and that will then allow you to take off the masks, and then you will be able to reveal the nice white, pure white circles underneath. Now, because you've put the masks down well with the cotton bud, there shouldn't be any danger of any seepage. However, if you want to go down the safe road, you can always do a couple of coats of hairspray so that if there is any seepage, it will be easier to take off when you remove those masks. So as you can see now, there's the distinctive white color as well as the off-white color. Don't worry if there's a little bit of color come through with the gray, because when we do some mapping with the white acrylics, that will all disappear. So now we're going to be doing the actual crosses themselves. Here's some of the internal shots as well. Now for the crosses, we're going to be masking with Tamiya tape. We're going to be using dark grey rather than black. And the reason for that is that we will use darker black tones to add effects to the actual dark grey base. It is a matter of masking everything off again. And as you can see, once applied, we have the start of the crosses on each of the panels as well as the rear doors. A little bit of seepage there, but it's not going to be an issue because again, we can always touch up with acrylics later on. And here are some stills showing the initial start with the crosses. So once these are fully dry, then we can go ahead and mask off again to do the horizontal part of the crosses. And as you can see, we have a nice result with your slightly darkened crosses on all of the panels. Now, we're now going to go over to Vallejo and Ammo. The reason I'm using the water-based acrylics is that we're now going to be doing washes. Now, washes are an effective tool to create your black and white contrast, as well as different tonal effects as well. So these are the ones that I use to mix up to create all those different shading. But first off, we're going to be looking at the dark colors. So let's go through those as well now. The reason for using the water-based acrylics is that they are easier to mix up than the enamel stroke lacquer ones like Mr. Hobby and Tamiya. So we're going to start with NATO Black. And we're going to add some water, and we want to make this very watery indeed. Because when you're actually using washes with acrylic paints, they do dry very quickly. So you must make sure that you continually move the paint around and that you don't leave any water tide marks at all. And what we're trying to do is start the layering process whereby we're adding tonal effects and also dirt marks. This is a very easy process to do, and you just need to use your standard artist paintbrush for this particular stage of the effects. And as you can see, the light catches all of those different dirt marks now, and that's your first layer of painting done. Now, in the film, there's a very distinctive mark on the side panel. This was replicated using the airbrush. But what we're going to be doing now is a little bit of mapping using the white, not only to tidy up that mark, but we'll also go around and tidy up any other blotches or marks that may have come or occurred while we were laying down those base coats. So just the dabbing motion and just try and blend it in with the darker colours. If you can't do it first off, which is mostly the case, then just let it dry and then you can go back in and repeat the process until you're happy with the final result. Now for the first wash, we're going to be using silver grey and medium grey. Again, this has to be a very translucent wash. As you can see, I've already done it on all these panels here, different shades, different depths of colour. And I'm just going to show you how that effect was created by adding on the wash. And as I said before, you must keep moving it around. You can use stippling effects, you can use streaking effects, and you can also use blending effects to create whatever sort of look that you want. If you feel that there's a little bit too much on there, then it's just a matter of wiping it clean and then carrying on, but at all times remembering to make sure that your brush is moist. Don't over soak the area, otherwise you'll have a devil of a time trying to mix all the paints. Work fairly quickly. As it does start to dry, try not to go back over the areas that you've already done, otherwise you will find you'll pull the paint off. So with all the side panels done and the interior done, I was happy with the way the project was heading. Next, turning our attention to the interior, we want to add some high contrast dark blacks, NATO blacks and grey blacks to give extra effect to the interior areas. Again, we're now doing washes in these darker colours. As you can see from the panels, I've already done some of this work. And again, it's a very simple process of applying, in this particular instance, the dark wash, continually moving it around, making sure that you don't create any of those watermarks, and blending it in until you get the effect that you desire. Once dry, if you don't feel it's dark enough, then feel free to go back over. But crucially, make sure it is dry before you do it again, otherwise you will start to pull the paint off. Again, this is just one part of the layering process. There will be more to come. As you can see from these finished photos of the interior, we have high contrast of blacks and whites and interior colours, and also speckling effects as well. Now what we want to do is to create some of the contrast light colour using white of the raised areas. Using a very fine brush, we're going to be using pure white. It's not been diluted in any way at all. And then it's just a matter of going over those highlighted areas, covering up any particular dots or blemishes that may have occurred during the rest of the process. And this again gives you that nice high contrast between the black and the white. Right, so we're going to turn our attention to the wheels now. We're going to be using dark rubber and also black. Again, using the dark rubber as a wash. Try and get as close to the rim as possible. Moving the paint around, obviously using the cocktail stick at the back of the tyre helps. And then once you've managed to cut it into that rim, then you can continue and paint the rest of the tyre. Now, the good thing about the dark rubber, it's one of the lighter dark colours that you'll use. And with that lighter base, then you can start to add darker colours as we go. And not forgetting to get into all of the areas of the tread as well. And making sure the whole of the wheel is covered. So there we have the combination of the black and the tyre rubber. And now we're going to add some Panzer Grey wash on as well. So this is the tyre once done. And as you can see, we're gradually starting to darken the wheel up altogether. And here's the comparison between the one that's been done and the one that hasn't. And as you can see, distinct darkness difference there. But again, we still want to add contrast. So now we're going to be using a deeper black wash. Here we're going to be trying to get it into the grooves, into the tyre treads itself. Now you don't see this full effect until the actual paint has dried. So a little bit of trust here. Again, a very liquid wash and just let it go into all of the recess areas. Again, no need to go over the top here, just to do one coat and that will finish it off nicely. Now let's have a look at some of the more masking and the actual chipping. Now on the vehicle in the film, there is a distinctive black line that goes around the bodywork. Now because we haven't gone dark, we can use black now and it will still stand out on the darker colours. So we do a little bit of hairspray in case there's any spillage. Then we do some mask and then we're going to sponge on black from Vallejo. So the masking off areas have been done. It occurs on two sides of the vehicle, and then just very easily using a sponging technique, we can then add that effect onto the model itself. And as you can see, that's come out very well indeed. I'm really pleased with how that effect works. As for the front windscreen, we need to mask off some viewing squares. Again, making sure that they're pressed down so there's no seepage. And then once done, we then add on a medium wash of grey mixed in with white. As for some of the logos on the truck, that's a matter of just masking off and painting on, dry brushing actually, with the different shades of dark colours. Here we're using NATO black as a contrast, and that coming out really well indeed. That insignia applies on the back doors as well. We then used a metal mask number 5, and again that number 5 was then sponged on using the darker colours. Didn't come out too well, so it was just a matter of using a fine brush and touching up afterwards. The final look was a good one. Now I did have to use some decals on the model for the numbers and also for one of the insignia. So it's just a matter of doing the standard, cover it in gloss varnish, let that dry, add your decal with your decal solutions. Now we're moving on to the weathering stages using oils. Now this is where you bring your vehicle to life. So using the oil palette cardboard, letting the linseed oil soak in, so allowing better drying time. As you can see, we have a palette of darks and lights, and also a couple of greys as well. We have mixing brushes as well as round 2 application brushes as well, and also we have some small detail brushes there for use. We have our thinners, some paper towels, and obviously the model itself that's going to be weathered. So first of all, we need to go from dark to light. Say that again. We need to go from light to dark. So we're going to be adding on a very thin, this is too heavy, so we just need to thin it down, a thin layer of different shades of white mixed together. And in this particular instance, we're going to be starting with the tyres. So once that's coat's been added as you can see, a very thin wash. You will need to dry that thoroughly with the hairdryer. And then once that's dry, we can then use our streaking brush using the serrated brush. And here we can start to create some streaks, radial streaks. And also this gives you a chance just to blend out or take away any of the larger areas of light paint that you don't feel looks realistic enough. And again, once done, get the hairdryer out to dry that out. Then we can do some speckling effects using a stirrer as well as the paint. Now, the thickness of the paint will determine the type of speckles that you'll get. So the thinner your paint is, you'll get very large and more opaque splatter marks. And so again, dry that. Once that's dry, we can now go on to the darker colors. So here we want to make the ridges and the treads stand out. So we're using a dark color, taking most of it off the brush. So effectively, we're going to be dry brushing the tire now. And again, you can do this in stages, building up the depth of color. But as you can see already, we're getting good depth there, good effects. And again, you can do some speckling effects with the black and dark colors as well. Once that's done, the final thing is to apply a black sepia wash. Again, this can be done to different thicknesses, depending on the look that you're after, if it's grease effects or if it's just dirt effect. And then once that's dry, you can then go in with your blending brush and blend it all out. So from start to finish, with the layering with the acrylics to the layering and weathering with the oils, you've now created a lot of depth, high contrast from black to white, and altogether you've now got 4 lovely tyres that represent what would have been seen in the black and white photos and the film itself. Now, the similar processes were used on the internal areas of the vehicle itself. As you can see, lots of high contrast areas, and that's the key to using the black and white method. You don't want to create an all in black grey look. You need to have the contrast of the black and the whites. So that's how the internal areas are done. What we're now going to do is walk you through the external area to create the effects that you're now looking at. All of this has been done. This will be the final look of the actual model itself, where you can see the high contrast, the whites, the greys, and the blacks. And I'm now going to run through the basic principles and techniques that you can use to create this look. And we're going to be using the black doors here to show you those processes. So first of all, we need to get some thinner just to clean off the area that you're going to be painting. And also it helps the oils to adhere to the areas that you're going to be doing the oil work. Next, what you need to do is to start with the light colors again, and then building up to the dark. So here we're going to put a very light wash of a mixture of white and grey. As you can see, there's quite a bit going on this one panel. So what you need to do is to move that around all over the 2 panels, so that you're not covering over all of the paintwork, but you're just laying down a thin, opaque layer of light oils. Once that's done, get out your stippling brush and blend that all in. And as you're blending, take off any excess. And this will create a nice base then to do some further dark work with your oils. Obviously, you need to hair dry in between each layer, because otherwise you'll start dragging off the good work that you've already done. Then once dry, we're going to add on a speckling layer. Here you can use different consistencies depending on how thin you wish your paint to be. We'll create different layers of speckling. Here I'm sort of trying to go for more of a translucent effect. So with the ones that are a little bit too heavy, you just need to go around with a bit of thinner, and then you can just blend those out, and that creates a nice effect. And if you want to, you can do some streaking effects as well. Now we're going to start applying the darker colours. Here we've got a moist brush, which will allow you to move the darker oils around, and at the same time using a blending brush as well. Now this is all being blended out, and in this particular instance I wasn't very happy with the way it was looking. So the good thing about oils is you just need to get a little bit of thinner, and then you can blend it all out again. Now it will leave a stain, so always be aware of that, but you can either start again or you can just blend it all out until you get the desired result that you like. Always remember though, if you do add any further thinner onto the surface, it's always best to dry it off with the hairdryer before continuing. Otherwise you'll take off all those layers that you've already built in. And then it's just a matter of using your reference material, finding out where the darker and lighter areas are, going around the area that you want to do all your shadow work and all your highlights and lowlights. And then once you've done it, you can just go around again, refining, doing more speckling work, and just building up those layers until you get the effect that you're happy with and that resembles the black and white research photos that you're working from. Once that's done, we're then going to add in the black sepia pin wash. Again, once this is dry, you can blend it out, creating another layer of dirt and grime. But this is an effective way to make all of those raised details pop on the actual model itself. Now this has all been done at the same time. I haven't left it for a day to dry or anything like that. It really is the key to use your hairdryer in between each level, and then that allows you to carry on doing the processes. And here, as you can see, I'm starting to blend out that wash, moving the excess into the grooves, increasing and improving the highlight. And this should be done with a dry brush. And again, I'm adding some dirt and detail effects as I go on the darker areas as well. So now we have the final reveal. It's been a very enjoyable project. I do really like the black and white effect. Strongly advise you to give it a go yourselves. It is a nice result on any particular model that you may well be doing. Hopefully this video has given you some pointers and some ideas on how you can also produce this effect. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed to all of my subscribers, old and new. I really appreciate your continued support of my work, and I'll leave you with this short video of the final vehicle, along with plenty of close-ups and stills that you may want to use yourself for any research if you do this particular model, or your own black and white schemes. In the meantime, happy modelling!